Hi everyone. Today we talk about an important topic in our life. The topic talk about emergency first aid for exposure and burns. At what is the emergency? An emergency is a situation that poses an immediate danger to health, life, property, or the environment. Most emergencies require urgent intervention to prevent the situation from deteriorating. Although in some cases mitigation may not be possible, while some emergencies are self-evident. Also, I talk about first aid for burns. Burns can be caused by exposure to the sun, hot liquids and objects, electricity or chemicals. First divided to first, second, and third degree. Burns are classified according to their depth, not the amount of pain or the extent of the burn. But about types of burns, we explain there are three classification of burns. First degree burns, second degree burns, and three degree burns. Now, this classification of burns will help you determine the proper emergency care. And when we talk about types of burns, type of burns first, second, and third degree, various degree to another, depending on the pain and the nature of the burning and duration address. As for cause of burns, divided to three types: chemical, thermal, and electrical. Chemical occur when caustic or corrosive substance touching the skin require a quick removal due to continue to burn as long in contact with the skin. But thermal burns are caused by heat. They can be caused by a flame, a hot object, or steam. And in the end, electrical burns are caused by an electrical current passing through the body. This can be caused by encountering a live electrical wire. And exposure type divided to chemical exposure and radiation exposure. About chemical, in contact with the chemical that is not properly stored or disposed properly can happen through inhalation, ingestion, and skin contact, may lead to serious consequences without further action. And radiation exposure can occur in three ways, which are internal by contact and external. Internal may occur due to ingestion or inhalation for the reductive material. By contact can occur due to handling the reductive material. External from industrial radiation that occur.
I will introduce the first aid for burn and exposure. When we meet the first and second degree burns, we should cool burned area with cold water, and don't touch the wound with your hand. and don't put butter, grease or oil, and don't break blisters that might develop. And we should leave the burn alone for 24 hours, and don't cover the burn unless clothing rubs on it. When the third-degree burns happen, we should call for immediately medical help and apply medical treatment. And we should make sure the source of burn has been extinguished, and cool burned area with cold water until pearlescence. And we should cover burned area with a steel dressing, and we should keep burned arms and legs above heart level, and we should have the person lie down to prevent shock. From chemical burns, we should follow this first aid. When the chemical burns in skin, we should wash the area with cold water for at least 20 minutes, and cover the burn area with a steel dressing to avoid the infection. And we should seek medical help if there is a major skin exposure to a strong acid. When chemical burns in skin, we should immediately flush the eye with water and continue flushing for 15 to 20 minutes. And after flushing, we should cover the eye with a clean bandage or cloth. And we should seek medical help if the eye is still hurt after 20 minutes first aid, and or if the eye appears to be damaged. Electrical burns. We should never approach or touch a victim until we are sure the power is turned off, and we should check for breathing or pulse if the victim is unconscious, and we should check for other injuries, and don't cool the burn. And if the victim is not breathing, we should begin to rescue breathing immediately. Is the first aid for exposure. There are 4 steps, and the first step is stop the source. Remove the victim from contact with the chemical spill, and take off any clothes that have been in contact with the chemical. And then clear the lungs and flush the eyes. Take the victim to fresh air, and flush the affected eye with water for at least 15 minutes. 4. Clean the skin. Flush water-activated chemicals, and flush the affected skin with cool water for at least 15 minutes. And don't brush away chemicals with your bare hands. And we should call for 911 right away if the victim has symptoms with shock, trouble breathing, or burns over a large area. And while we are waiting for the help, we should reassure the person, and if needed, we should do rescue breathing or CPR.
Hi everyone, I'm Ainil, one of the member of Group 4, and I'll be presenting about exposure and burns prevention. So in this slide, I'll provide some of the way that we can actually apply in order to prevent from radiation exposure. So first thing first, to reduce the time, try to reduce the amount of time of you handling the radioactive substance, because lesser time, lesser exposure. Second, to actually increase the distance between you and the radiation source, because as we all know, the radiation rate drops when we move further away from the source. Third one is to actually use a proper radiation shield and a personal protective equipment. So as you can see, as an example, this guy is actually wearing a lead apron as part of his personal protective equipment. Next is the way to prevent from chemical exposure. Number 1 is to do engineering control, basically to provide a proper ventilation system. Second is to do exposure monitoring routine. This is actually to determine the airborne concentration of a hazardous material in your working environment. You also need to monitor the medical of your lab attendees to see any of them showing symptoms being exposed to hazardous material, such as vomiting or probably having a really bad headache. Third one is to use a proper protection equipment such as your lab coat, mask, glove, and your goggles. Next is thermal burn prevention. So number one is to actually review your job before doing it. This actually can help you to identify potential hazard and eliminate the hazard. Second is to wear a protective equipment, no matter while you're handling a hot or cold substance, because remember, extremely cold substance also can cause thermal burn. Number three is to locate the safety equipment. You need to locate the fire extinguisher and the fire blanket because it is easier for you to grab it if any accident occurs. Explaining way that we can actually do to avoid from chemical burn. So first thing first, please store your chemical properly and tightly in an appropriate storage. Second, again, wear a proper protective equipment, especially if you're handling with something very corrosive. Please wear a proper glove. And third one, I think this is very important. Please be very attentive while conducting the experiment. For example, while you're doing your work, I know that you are very busy, but please make sure that you don't simply put your chemical like at the edge of the table and stuff like that. So please be very attentive while doing your work. Okay, so next is electrical burn prevention. So number one is to stay dry. Make sure there is no pool of water near your working area and your hands are always dry. Second is to cover the switch. This is actually to protect your finger and other item from the outlet. The third one is to make sure the tools that you're using is in good condition. For example, the tools that you're using doesn't have any damaged cord or missing ground pin or maybe an exposed wire. So I would like to sum up about my group presentation. My group has provided all the information about first aid of exposure and burn. And what I can say is that it is important to educate ourselves about safety because it actually can save life. Second, remember all the information, all the knowledge that we already learned, it is also important to apply it in our everyday life. Because remember, it's better to be safe than sorry.